Hello and welcome to the world premiere. I'm very happy to greet Sydney today in our presentation. Hi, Sydney.
Hello.
Usually we do these learning Rust with Gadoxide shows, but today is a special day because 1 month after I started working on a feature very important to me, it's finally done. Cargo Smart Release can now generate changelogs, believe it or not. Do you have any experience with changelog generation, by the way?
Personally, no, not at all. It's really just something that I read on other repositories that I want to use, and I find it very helpful, but I haven't personally done anything alike.
Yeah, I mean, with Git Oxide, I try to start doing changelogs, but it's so hard to not forget anything. It's so hard to be disciplined about it. And usually the only discipline I have is with Git commits. I can do that, but I don't really do discipline with changelogs just yet. I'm just not good enough with that. My mind doesn't do that, unfortunately. But as always, tools can help the mind to get better. And this generator is a bit special because it's exactly what I need for Git Oxide. So it helps me to create a scaffolding for changelogs and does so in a non-destructive way. So it just helps you, so to say, and then you go in, hand edit the stuff, and when you regenerate, it just leaves everything as is. So it's stable. It's a stable changelog scaffolding generator that helps you to build a house without building the house for you or consistently rearranging things for you. It just sticks with what you give it, and that's it. And that's really the cool thing about it. But maybe we should just try to use it in an example. So what about bat? Bat is a wonderful tool that displays things in the terminal like that, and it has a changelog, which already looks pretty awesome. I mean, much better than my changelogs ever looked. And as you can see here, there's a bunch of versions already in here, pretty massive changelogs, and a lot of unreleased stuff coming up as well. Okay, but something I'm missing here is the date. When was that change released? When was that tag created? I don't know. It can be useful to understand when you can use how old versions have to be to have a certain feature or flag or something like that. Because, let me make this a bit smaller now that we go into demo mode. Like this. Because Cargo Smart Release actually uses bat to display a preview of the changelog. So Cargo Smart Release, if you execute it, I mean, do you think it will now release something? Do you think it will try to release bat?
Well, I would think so, but maybe there's something to be more explicit about. So you'd need to pass it a flag to actually go and execute, to
Execute.
not accidentally do something you wouldn't want to.
That's right. I thought the same. So there is an execute flag, and without that, it doesn't do anything. So I created a clone for our demo. Sorry, a fork. So I can actually push things and try stuff out. So also I opened the changelog already here. So we can take a look of how this looks like in code, and we can also maybe open a preview, markdown preview window to see what will happen next. Okay, let's just run it and see what happens. Okay, a bunch of stuff that we didn't see, some log messages there, and now something that claims to be a preview of the changelog file that we have been looking at. It's simplified, and a bunch of information on what to do now and how this works, with the option of using a new subcommand, by the way, cargo changelog, to interact with the changelog directly without living in fear of releasing something all the time. So let's see if we can make use of that. So here I already see kind of a difference, as it added this preamble with a bunch of links, and also it shows you that what was previously unreleased now has the the coming up version number that it determined by itself, by the way, and the dates. And now that we are talking about dates, yeah, let's get to more dates a bit in a moment. It also added commit statistics here. So we know 50 calendar days are already passed since the last release. Maybe that tells us we really want a new release of BET. And a lot of commit details here, which show us which commits are associated with which issue. And a bunch of commits that don't have an issue number that we could determine at least. All right. And here it's a bit hard to see because the syntax highlighting might have given up here because there's a white space missing. I mean, it's okay for Markdown, but for the syntax highlighter is not okay. You also see that it did add the dates of the release, which is cool. And also apparently added another section here, bug fixes with a different kind of writing. So I guess with an existing changelog, you want to study everything and just clear it out once it was generated, just so that all this makes sense. You don't end up with 2 sections or something like that. Yeah. And then as I quit out of that, it tells me, okay, I'm happy. I would create a release now. And this is something I find very critical because I don't want it to make a changelog release even after I reviewed it so easily. Like it should have some safeguards so that it doesn't auto-generate everything and publishes this right away. Because auto-generated fully is never awesome because it has to use the Git history to do that, right? And it's never just that. There's always some hand tweaking necessary, to my mind, to make a great changelog. Because it just creates scaffolding. It's not really trying to give you the prose, the Shakespeare. It just gives you a few bullet points that you can then fill in and make great. But in this case, it's happy because there's so much hand-edited stuff in there already that it maintained and kept, as you saw, that it's fine. It's fine enough. So it's not trying to be too critical there, but honestly, it is fine. All right, but nothing changed. So it's hard to kind of give it the last polish without having a change, but I remember there is a thing we can do. What is it? To now write the changelog and edit it, so to say. How do we get to
subcommand, right?
Yep. Which subcommand was it?
Cargo changelog.
Yeah, it's kind of easy to remember that one. I think there's also no cargo changelog there yet on crates.io, so I can take the name, I guess. And if I do this, again, it's dry run mode by default, doesn't do anything, doesn't write anything. But this time it shows you that it doesn't know the next version, so it sticks to unreleased, even though it did capitalize the headline here. Okay, fair enough. And everything else should be like it was before. So now in order to write it, I could execute, but in this case it's not called execute, it's called write, because that's really the only thing it does. It doesn't execute complex processes or something like that. So in order to write this to disk, we do write. Okay. And 35 sections have been created. It considers sections, I think these top level headlines. All right, so let's see. Something I would immediately want to change is this one here, just keep a changelog information. It's more like an add. So I don't really want to endorse keep a changelog because, I don't know, but semantic versioning seems fine. So now I just go in and edit this stuff. And I would expect it to respect my edits and not just override it next time. Let's see, let's scroll down, see how this looks like. Also interesting, in the preview we didn't see like these extra tags that tell you not to edit this because it's read-only. Also, we didn't see any links which have been created here. So if I click this, it does indeed bring up the respective issue, even though it uses the, it doesn't know it's a fork, so my fork doesn't have this issue. This is why. we don't see this. But the link itself works. And the commit details, of course, that you can also unfold in the preview. So it looks like this. And that's pretty neat to me. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this section here. It looks good. Nothing else there. New themes, probably some empty section that we could remove. Where is it? Oh no, it's not actually empty. It's there. Okay, good. Just a little bit of a space here. Okay. I would be happy to say this is the version I want to go with when creating release. So now we do a commit, changelog adjustments prior to release. And it's always easy to say, yeah, have been a lot of changes here because it fills in all these commit details back to the first release ever, which is interesting. But it's easy to say that this thing never alters anything that you've already changed, right? So we have to put that to the test, I guess. And what better way to do this is to have Git tell us if there is a change if we write that again. Because in theory, there should be no change now. Let's see if that's true. Should be stable, because if I regenerate this and each time something changed and wobbles around, then it's probably a bit hard to use. So it should be stable. Is it? Okay, this is fair because we now created a new commit here. So it had to adjust the statistical information. But this looks a bit funky here. Because that should really not, this should not be. It changed the indentation, which really affects the markdown rendering. But also the indentation hasn't really been where it should be to begin with. And this can always happen. So it's worth, I mean, it can always happen when the changelog is manually created like that. So it's probably something you want to watch out for the first time you use Cargo Smart Release or Cargo Changelog. But it's okay. Now we can go in and find that spot to Japanese. And here we are. And my guess is that the problem here is the white space. So this is user. So what do we have here, right? We have this message that it extracted from Git conventional. So there's some Git conventional message somewhere that I think is also mentioned in the statistics here. Where is the statistics? Here. So 3 commits that were understood as Git conventional. And that's this particular syntax of your commit message that allows you to say, okay, there's a new feature, there's a breaking change, something like that. And it parses this information and puts it into headlines here, into sections. And just by coincidence, there was already a section called bug fixes that it detected and inserted something that it found in the history that was a conventional commit. So it's pretty smart if you think about it like that. But because the indentation is a bit wrong, now the whole non-destructive editing part kind of breaks down because white space is tricky also when parsing it. Things can get lost, let's say, and this is what we see here, I guess. So my expectation is that if I align this correctly, it will be fine if you rewrite it. So let's see, let's write it once more. Oh yeah, it doesn't want to overwrite stuff that isn't committed yet for safety, but we can force it. And you see nothing actually changed here. Let's ask Git just to verify. Yes, it's fine now. It's not moving anymore. So it's stable, that's what we want. But also here, look at this. This is what was in the commit log. And this is why I say this should never be fully auto-generated. And says, okay, we have a README that seems to be Japanese, which coincides with translated to Japanese, right? So this is exactly that message. So there's 2 ways to deal with this, because it would always, like if I just delete this, look at that, look at what happens. If I write this now, it dumps it right back where it was. And apparently I don't know where that is coming from, really. Is this might be part of the commit message, actually, or something like that. Maybe, yeah, this is the body. And because the body is also markdown, things go wrong. Now I get it. Now I know why that happened. This is part of the body that it inserts here. So we really have to review this and adjust it. But in our case, we know that this is the actual message that relates to that. So we can just say, okay, we put that tag here and delete this. And now it should just leave this alone because it sees that this is here and that's all it needs. And you see it's stable now. And if you want to delete a message, by the way, you can just put it somewhere else. You can just put it here. And it will also not mess with what's there. And if you would want to delete the whole bug fixes area, you just put it one level up so that it's underneath your section, that ID. And then you can delete the whole section if you want. Otherwise, it would bring that back. But this is how that works. So you basically have a few IDs that you shift around, and based on this, it knows what to do with that. In this case, I think it's best to just say, okay, let's just leave it here. That's fine. Maybe makes this look cleaner. But that's also something you now need to do. You need these IDs and need to manage them. You can't just remove them because otherwise it would just bring them back because that's what it does. Fair enough. All right. So now again, let's see that this is actually stable, and it is. And we can say, hey, we stabilized our changelog. And now, of course, if you look through this, you will still see some duplicate sections here that want to be fixed, like bug fixes and bug fixes. Let's just do this one. I hope I find it. It's a bit hard here. Let's search for bug fixes. Okay. Is this the right one? No, I think it's above. Let's search up. Okay, so here we have it. Yeah, so that should be easy to fix. Just have your preference. I think this is a different kind of writing. And we can now just move our custom text right in here. And the spelling, that doesn't seem so great, right? I don't know if we even want it, so I think I would rather want to remove it entirely like this. Okay. And now let's check if it's stable. And it is. I think it just adjusted the white space a little bit. Again, stable. Okay, so this is how you work with this once you change it. You just write it a few times to verify that it's now stable, and then you can go ahead. Okay, and usually, you only do this for the about to be released thing. Do this once, unless you migrate, then you might have some more work to do. Okay. Now we have regenerated this and some statistics change again. So let's just make another one, stabilize changelog. So you can hardly, if you want to do an amend commit, right? Then you change the commit message, or you change the commit of something that is up here. Then it will still change your changelog. Like you can't ever get it stable unless you create a new commit for that. No amend commits possible. Fair enough. All right, but that's it. Changelog is stable. Now I would say we can do a smart release cargo. Smart release. Let's try again. Dry run. Looks good. 18.4 looks good. And it would release it. Let's see what we missed. Yeah, it said it auto bumped the patch level here because it didn't detect any breaking changes. And then that's pretty much it. Let's also avoid looking at the changelog each time. So I say no changelog preview. And I also don't want it to actually try to publish, because if I did, it would fail because I can't publish this crate as my own, obviously. But that should be it. And execute. Now it's armed. And we can see what happens. Okay. So created a tag with release notes. That's pretty cool. And it created a GitHub release as well. Let's look at both. So 18.4. This one. And you see that the tag message now is exactly what goes into the changelog, but without any links or anything else that would look kind of dirty or unnecessary in the pure text version here. So it's kind of a rewrite of what's actually in the file, which is practical if you can losslessly regenerate things, right? Because now I can rewrite the markdown in different shapes and ways. And that's neat. Okay. All that looks good. So it adjusted the manifest versions and whatever else is necessary. And it can do that, of course, for a big workspace like a doc site as well, and keep it all together. So now, what about that release that we're supposedly have now? Let me reload. And it did create a new release. And that looks a bit different again, because GitHub auto renders these issue IDs, and it actually associates it with the fork. That's great. Sorry, with the source repository. So these now are clickable properly. And look at commit details. Now this is folded as you would expect. And this is also automatically linked by GitHub. So that's pretty neat. So you have all together, all in one and all by one process. And it's all basically automated as much as it can be. And that's it. That's Cargo Smart Release. Ah, but there's one more thing. Just one more thing that I should show, because it also automatically determines the right version number, right? Because if you delete a ton, like that's how I work. I have this huge amount of crates and I work on all of them. Some have breaking changes, some don't. And it's just crazy to keep track of the actual version number and what's the right version number. Yeah, the commit message actually tells you that, but it should only bump once, right? Not like 10 times, so we don't skip any version number, things like that. And let's simulate that. So touch break. Let's add this. And now the trick that for these things that you want to appear in the changelog as your scaffolding, you use git conventional, but only then. Don't just scatter git conventional everywhere and think of, should it be a chore or this or that? No, just when you want it to appear, when you're happy. So let's call this a feature or a refactor or a feature that is breaking. So this exclamation mark can actually signal that. There's other ways to signal breaking as well. And whatever is a valid signal in git conventional, it will parse correctly. Thanks to the great git conventional crate that was created by the author of Cargo, or maintainer of Cargo release at Page. So honorable mention for sure. Great work in this field. So now feature, it's a new break, something like that. Okay, that's it. Now, I actually should have shown what happens if you try to Cargo Smart Release again. Let's do that. Git release, git reset, hard hat -1. Let's try that first. So Smart Release should also be stable. And it tells you, well, it didn't change, so I wouldn't do anything, right? So it also does this kind of change tracking and basically does everything you need to do in order to make this, do this right. Now, again, touch break, git add break, feature, a new break. Okay, so what now? Let's try this, but without the changelog preview, and see what it says. Oh, look, it autobumped bat minor because there was a breaking change. and it would change the changelog. So let's just do this. Let's see what happens. So what if I now say I wanna release this right away? Yeah, actually I know what would happen because it says I would prepare a release. It should actually say I don't want these fully auto-generated ones. So how would my release log look like? Huh. Yeah, I guess it's not as strict as I thought it would be with the changelog. So it's willing to publish this because it's good enough for it. Maybe I will change that. So it forces you to do some sort of user edit there, because I think that's more like what I would want. But maybe not. I don't know. So it would release that, and it automatically determines it's a breaking change. And we can also do that. And I think that also concludes the demo. Okay, last chance for review. Looks good still. And now the next release happens. Oh yeah, right. We are not actually looking at releases. This UI is always a bit confusing. And there we are. The new release has just been created, and it has never been easier. And the cool thing is that now if you have watchers, that they get notified. And they will get notified with emails that have nicely rendered changelogs in it, and it's just the way it should be. And that's it. That's Cargo Smart Release with changelog integration. What's your thoughts?
Say, this is really awesome. I mean, if you work a little bit structured, which I guess you should anyway, you know, especially with your commits and how you wanna, if you have kind of a plan of the features and stuff you're working on, and then being able to just completely generate this stuff for you, but then also going in and editing it to the way you want. It sounds like it just saves you so much work. It's something that I would love to use myself.
And you can, because it's available now on crates.io. Thanks a lot for watching, and have a nice day.